Ladies and gentlemen, from a catacomb buried deep beneath the streets of the New World Order, this is the Remnant Underground. And now, here's your host, Michael J. Matt.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 6 of the Remnant Underground. As you can see, things down in the catacomb aren't quite ready for prime time. In fact, poor old Rob is down there right now working on some technical improvements, getting ready for the kickoff for the new season next week. So we will be back down in the catacombs next week. I'm actually coming to you tonight. This is kind of exciting. I'm coming to you from the new set, which is almost ready to go, for a new little program that we're going to be rolling out this fall. It's going to be maybe even a daily, but it certainly will be a lot shorter, just short comments on big news stories and so forth. So, sort of keep an eye out for that once we get it up and running. I think most people realize that our main bread and butter here at the Remnant is actually the Remnant newspaper. That's right, the old newsprint newspaper that's been going for 51 years. I hate to say it, but that's where the revenue comes from to support everything else, from our loyal subscribers who subscribe to the newspaper still. That helps us to kind of keep afloat. So, of course, the Remnant newspaper has been going every 2 weeks, all summer long. You can also, by the way, subscribe to the Remnant e-edition. That's exactly the same as the newspaper. It's also available for subscription online if you want to sign up. It would really help us out. But for Remnant TV, we're kind of old school, so we take the summers off. I've got 7 kids, and they're more important to me. No offense, but they're more important to me than anything else in the world. And summer is a time for, families, especially homeschool families like ours, to spend quality time together and to try to create some sort of a normal life for these poor kids who are living really in an apocalyptic time. So, yes, we took the summer off, but next week we are going to be back and ready to rumble, because, man, there is lots to do. This latest development from Archbishop Vigano, accusing Pope Francis and other hierarchs of covering for this despicable pervert, Cardinal Ted McCarrick, over the years. I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but this is like something none of us have ever seen in our lifetime. And this is a sea change. This is a pivotal moment. I don't think that after this, that the Church of Accompaniment is going to go back to business as usual. I don't think it's going to happen. And that's sort of the silver lining of all this. The Church of Accompaniment just hit a wall. Thanks be to God. Because this is a whole list now of credible accusations of sexual abuse and sexual cover-up at the highest levels. And these accusations are being made not by some anti-Catholic hack, not by Bill Maher on, HBO or wherever he hangs out these days, but by a papal nuncio, friends, and against even the Pope himself. They simply cannot dismiss this. They can't walk it back. Try as they might to attack the Archbishop and to make, disparaging remarks and try to undermine him. And he was a kook and he was a crazy, he's a racist, which we'll talk about in a few moments. They can't get away with this. He is, quite simply, one of them. Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano is one of them. He is not some Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, rad-trad, Latin Mass offering remnant guy. No. He's an 80-year-old prince of the church who's had enough, clearly. And people say, well, yeah, but in the past, he didn't do such a great job with Archbishop Nienstedt. He's got his own motives. I don't care what his motives are. We need to look at his charges, which obviously are credible. By the church's own definition of what a credible charge is, his charges are eminently credible. And so even if he did in the past drop the ball a little bit in this or that case, I don't know, he would have been following Vatican protocol, which has been pretty much a protocol of cover-up for this garbage, for this rot, for a long time. So, okay, I don't know, maybe he handle every case perfectly? I have no idea. But the point is now he's saying, I can't put up with this anymore. I know too much. And so this man stands up, and finally, we have an archbishop, we have a prince of the church, in this case a nuncio, somebody who is there, who knows the inside, who is standing up and saying something to stop it. And he's going to be attacked? This archbishop simply had the courage to do the right thing and to at least try to drain this putrid swamp that is the post-conciliar hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Thanks be to God for this man. Thank God for him. Thank you, Your Excellency. And this poor man, he's reportedly left the country immediately after filing his 11-page list of his expose, 11-page expose. He had to leave the country, and he's still in hiding, apparently fearing for his life. Because you know why? Because the Archbishop is well aware of the evil that he's up against. I don't like to say this, folks, but it seems to me the fact that he immediately went into hiding suggests he knows darn well that he is up against mafia-styled thugs that might even take it upon themselves to take out an archbishop who breaks ranks, right? This is what we're dealing with in the Catholic Church today. And yet Pope Francis the Humble, he's not going to say a single word. Did you see this? It's worth watching again. He is not going to say one word about it. Check this out.
Io ho letto questa mattina quel comunicato. Ho letto e io dirò sinceramente che devo dirvi questo. A lei e a tutti coloro di voi che sono interessati. Leggete voi attentamente il comunicato e fate voi il vostro giudizio. Io non dirò una parola su questo. Credo che il comunicato parla da se stesso e voi avete la capacità giornalistica sufficiente per prendere le conclusioni. È un atto di fiducia. Quando passi un po' il tempo e voi avete le conclusioni, forse parlerò, ma io vorrei che la vostra maturità professionale faccia questo lavoro. Vi farà bene, davvero.
My goodness. This is the best that Greg Burke and company can do over there in the Vatican. I mean, this has got to be the most staggering implicit admission of guilt that I've ever seen. That's the best they can do? What else are we supposed to conclude from this other than that they know, they being the Vatican, Burke, Bergoglio, they know darn well that Archbishop Vigano has got the goods on them, that he took copious and careful notes, that he's a Vatican insider, that he was a diplomat, that he had to cover himself, and so he's got the paper trail. They know it. They have one card to play. Discredit him. Shoot the messenger. That's all they've got. And media people, you can, trust me, you know that I would never do something like this. I can't believe he tried that. These are the folks of the media, the people that Francis has consistently attacked for being purveyors of fake news. Now he's going to let these purveyors of fake news use their discretion and use their good judgment to decide if the Pope is guilty of these crimes. I mean, Archbishop Vigano's accusations are textbook, they fit the textbook definition of credible. And Francis isn't going to say one word. Why not? Why is that, Your Holiness? Let's talk about that for a moment, shall we? Could it be perhaps because Archbishop Vigano, a longtime Vatican diplomat, is the fly on your wall and he knows all the secrets? Because that certainly is what it looks like from here. And by the way, if Pope Francis is innocent, as I hope and pray he is, because no practicing Catholic wants this to be in the news, that the Pope is guilty of such horrific crimes and sins. I want him to be innocent. I want the investigation to move forward. But if the Pope is innocent, then say as much and beg forgiveness on behalf of the Church that this has happened regardless of innocence and guilt. Express remorse, Holy Father. Weep over what's happening to our Church, the scandal that we all feel in our hearts. Do you think that they've forgotten? Do you think the world has forgotten the name Cardinal Bernard Law, for heaven's sakes? It's not like these charges come from out of left field, come out of nowhere. For 25 years, the accusations of the whistleblowers have been justified. The charges of the victims have been justified, which is why dioceses all over the country, all over the world, are going broke, filing bankruptcy because they're losing in court. Because these charges are justified, because the priesthood, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church has indeed become a cesspool. Yeah, certainly the media, they're biased. I get that, because that's one of the other things we've heard, even from several bishops. Oh, the media is biased. This is happening everywhere. They're picking on us. Really? Yes, certainly the media concentrate on Catholic abusers and Catholic cover-ups more than any others, but there's a reason for that, right? We understand it. We get it. Everyone knows the horrific abuse, sexual abuse, is happening across the board. Of course, it's happening in churches everywhere, synagogues, mosques, all denominations of Christianity, and in public schools, by the way. The reason the Catholic Church is singled out like this is because she has always held the bar higher, because she is called to a higher standard as the one true church of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. As such, she should be singled out. Her sin is greater than that of others. Other denominations that have no access to the sacraments. They don't have any sacraments. They don't have the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. They don't have a consecrated priesthood. No, friends, the Catholic Church has the grace to know better. That's why this is such a big story. So, of course, the media have been in a feeding frenzy, some even attempting to make this all about pedophilia, in an obvious attempt to protect their LGBTQRSTUV friends. But nice try. The evidence shows that the clear majority of clerical sexual abuse victims across the board, the majority are, wait for it, male, whether minor or adult. In fact, the story this week really should be that the media are not coming for Francis. They would have ripped Benedict in half, demanded his head on a silver platter if this had happened to him. But not Francis. Now, why should that be? Folks, don't you see what's happening here? It's because Francis is one of them. It's because he's with them on the LGBTQRS agenda. It's because he's with them on climate change. It's because he's with them on illegal immigration. It's because he is a George Soros guy fighting for a world without borders. He's with them on the whole New World Order thing. Yeah, of course he gets a pass. He's their boy. The world loves Francis. And you know what? All you defenders of this man, why does the world love Christ Vicar so much when they hate Christ so much that they've banned him from their countries, ripped his crucifixes off the walls of their public buildings? They hate Christ. They hate his church. Oh, but isn't it something? They love his vicar. Francis gets to say not one word in his defense. You know why? Because he knows the media are going to defend him. And that's exactly what they're doing. The media are defending him, and a few neo-Catholic holdouts are defending him. He can afford to leave his defense to his surrogates, such as the Cardinal Archbishop of Chicago, who was promoted incredibly to that position. By the way, and according to Archbishop Vigano's testimony, he was promoted on the advice of the child molester, Cardinal McCarrick, who became an important advisor to Pope Francis the Great. Cardinal McCarrick, the child molester, the villain, advisor to the Pope. But Supich is talking. Supich knows the scoop. Check out what Supich is saying.
Cardinal Blaise Supich responds to questions whether disgraced Cardinal Theodore McCarrick lobbied for Supich's promotion to Chicago.
It's not as though I just fell out of the sky.
McCarrick's influence detailed in a bombshell memo from Archbishop Carlo Vigano, the former Vatican envoy to the U.S.
The Pope has a bigger agenda. He's got to get on with other things of talking about the environment and protecting migrants and carrying on the work of the church. We're not going to go down a rabbit hole on this.
The Cardinal suggests a personal bias against the Pope.
Quite frankly, they also don't like him because he's a Latino.
I'm sorry, but is this not the dumbest man to ever wear the red hat? I mean, the problem here today in the church is that nobody wants these positions, positions of leadership or authority in the church, because the church has lost her prestige. The Catholic prestige is in the toilet. In any case, these leadership positions, which are now being filled by the likes of Blaise here, these leadership positions are being filled by little nerds. You know, the little nerds that we knew back in high school with the pocket protector and the flood pants. Okay, I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Nobody wants that position. So yes, Blaze, you got it figured out there, genius. Vigano went after Francis because Francis is a Latino. That's it. Even though Bergoglio's parents are both Italian, just like Vigano's, let's just play the race card anyway. Just like the good little simpering liberal that you are, Your Eminence, because you've got nothing else. I'm sorry, friends, but really, what is wrong with these people? Why are they trying to shoot the messenger like this, even calling this man a racist? And the people who take him serious, racists. What are they so afraid of that makes them so intent to shoot the messenger? Whether it's this little guy down in Chicago or the president of Ave Maria University squealing away about how terrible it is that the Archbishop Vigano would accuse the Pope. Well, you know what I think, president of Ave Maria University? I think it's pretty terrible that a little insignificant president like you would be attacking a papal nuncio who's trying to save children. I think that's pretty off-putting, President. Or how about the insufferable Massimo Fagioli? What is this guy's problem? I probably have his name wrong. I don't care. Mr. Fagioli, who today went out there on Twitter accusing all of those, connecting everybody who's in any way taking Archbishop Vigano's charges seriously, connecting them to, you guessed it, the alt-right. Accusing us all of being alt-right haters, trying to take over the church. Really, Massimo? Does that include all of these guys who over the past week have stood up for Archbishop Vigano and called for an investigation, a thorough investigation of his credible accusations? I'm talking about Bishop Robert Morlino of Wisconsin. Is he part of the alt-right? Bishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco, alt-right? Bishop Athanasius Schneider of Kazakhstan, Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, Raymond Cardinal Burke, Bishop Olmsted of Phoenix, Archbishop Vigano of Detroit, Bishop Slattery, Archbishop Samuel Aquila of Denver now, Bishop Thomas J. Poprocki of Springfield, Illinois. If your only response to this list of credible accusations against Pope Francis and some of his men, if your only response is to attack Archbishop Vigano, you are part of the cover-up. Otherwise, you'd be adding your voice to ours and calling for a full investigation, if for no other reason than to clear the name of your boy, Pope Francis. We all want to see his name cleared, by the way. So let's bring on the investigation. What are you afraid of? You don't want that investigation. You don't want the truth to come to light. Because you suspect what? You suspect it will destroy Francis and company. It'll destroy Team Bergoglio. Otherwise, you'd be demanding the investigation like the rest of us and like all these bishops are now doing. But you can't risk that, can you? Because you know this guy. There's something with this guy. He's not going to be able to hold up to scrutiny, and you know it. And so you're covering up for him. But now, if you want to just shoot this messenger, you're covering up for the cover-up of predators against kids and against a lot of young men in seminaries, young priests in dioceses everywhere. You're covering for that. You don't really care. I'm sorry. You are now linked to the child molesters yourself because you're trying to stop a legitimate investigation. And God knows there is room for investigation. I was in Rome just before Benedict abdicated, covering some stories over there, including eventually the abdication. I was at Pope Benedict's last Wednesday audience. For whatever reason, I had a pretty good press pass that day that got me right up on the dais, right next to the Pope. I have video of all of this. And all of a sudden, I realized I was in the company of a lot of milling cardinals and archbishops. And I remember clearly thinking, oh my goodness, these are some pretty fellows. And then very soon thereafter, the whole issue of the dossier. Remember the dossier? The dossier of homosexuals in the Curia. It was the talk of the Vatican press office when I was there. 3 cardinals had been commissioned by the Pope to investigate the so-called lavender mafia right there inside the Vatican. There was going to be a thorough investigation and the cleaning out of the stables, and we were all so excited, remember? Well, do you remember what happened next? A history-making papal abdication under a cloud of mystery and intrigue that still exists to this day. What was that all about? Benedict was gone overnight. And the dossier, well, of course, something happened to it. It got lost, it disappeared, and a new pope was installed. There was a new sheriff in town who very quickly became very famous for saying what? The most famous thing Francis has said so far. Who am I to judge? And remember this? Remember, this is not about your average run-of-the-mill homosexual, gay, lesbian folks or whatever at the grocery store. When he said, who am I to judge? He's talking about homosexual men in the clergy. Let's take a look at this again in the context now of Archbishop Vigano's testimony. Check this out.
If a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge him? The Pope said gay clergymen should be forgiven and their sins forgotten. In 2005, his predecessor Pope Benedict said men with deep-rooted homosexual tendencies should not be priests.
So you think there's no connection between this and what's going on now? You think there's absolutely no connection? Well, I mean, if that's your case, if that's your position, then you want to be in the dark. You want to stay there. And you know what, folks? What we're really learning now as this horrible story unfolds, what we're learning is that we're not dealing with modernists anymore. Not really. Not really. We're dealing with apostates. We're dealing with men who've lost the faith. At least they've lost the faith in the God of Christianity. Oh, sure. They have their own God. They have their own faith. Their faith in their own God. The one that they made in their own modernist image and likeness. They have faith in that God. The God of surprises. The God of uber mercy. They don't believe in the God of judgment, of course. This is why they stopped talking about heaven and hell and sin decades ago. This is why so many of them tell us that if hell exists, well, there's nobody in it. Because their God, the God of modernism, is the God of presumption. And that God would never damn anyone. This is vintage Martin Luther, if nothing else. One of the biggest surprises, according to these characters, one of the biggest surprises that the God of surprises has in store for us is that when we die, we're going to find out there's nobody in hell. We're all going to the happy place. So sin, and sin boldly. And don't be a Pharisee. Don't be a Neo-Pelagian. Don't be a rigorist, because God is merciful. Friends, this is distilled Satanism. To tell the whole world not to worry about sin, not to worry about judgment, not to worry about hell. Don't you see what's going on? These men are telling the world, you can't really stop sinning anyway. You know, and these wretched hierarchs who are preying on young men, on kids, on boys, they truly believe this. This is how they get to sleep at night. God would never damn me. This is why they hate us as well. They hate faithful Catholics, and they continue with this constant harangue against the folks in the church who are still following the rules. Because those folks remind them of what the Catholic Church always taught for 2,000 years before they came along, with their Church of Accompaniment and your God of Surprises. They are changing not only the church, but they're changing God as far as the world's concerned. They're leading souls not to heaven, but to the sin of presumption. One of the two sins against the Holy Ghost. Despair and presumption. Presumption will damn you to hell. If you truly believe that God will never damn me, God will never damn us. If you believe this, that's the sin of presumption, a very special and serious sin. And yet that is what they are doing right now in the Vatican. They want to change the church forever. They want to change God forever. They want to change the faith and morals of the Catholic Church. They want to change the moral law of the church to allow divorced and remarried people to come to the sacraments, gay unions, whatever. There's nothing that's going to be considered sinful in the years to come other than failing to recycle maybe, and maybe smoking cigarettes. That's it. This Vatican is ready to greenlight everything. And they'll do it with their synodal church. Just wait and see what happens if the synod is not stopped in October. They will greenlight gay unions, homosexual acts. They will edit the catechism again. And now some folks are shocked that Francis was allegedly involved in a cover-up of homosexual prelates. Why would you be shocked? He's been signaling this position of his ever since they put him in to Peter's chair. Do you remember this from a few years ago? Francis meeting with his old homosexual friend who's married to another man. I know we've played it before, but in the context now of these new revelations of Archbishop Vigano, let us watch this video, short video, one last time. Check it out.
Oh my gosh.
Esta es.
Usted es único.
Gracias, amor. Gracias por todo esto. Gracias por todo esto.
Ay, qué hermosa foto. Gracias.
You can't be shocked that it might be the case that Francis is covering up for some of his gay pals in the clergy after watching that. That is blatant. He's not trying to cover up anything. He and his team made sure the cameras were running when the Supreme Pontiff, successor of St. Peter, Vicar of Christ on earth, signaled to all the world total acceptance of those in sodomitical unions. You think that was an accident somehow? They didn't know the cameras were running? They didn't know that the kids of the world were going to be scandalized, that they were going to get the message loud and clear, that the Catholic Church is changing her position on basic morality? You think they didn't know? You want to give them a pass? Those who are trying to give a pass to this sort of thing, you really have to examine your conscience and ask yourself, why? Why do you want to defend this anymore? But as I said earlier, there is a silver lining to all this. God will not be mocked. This degenerate apostasy has gotten the best of the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. Apostasy, by the way, that was predicted back by the pioneer traditionalists when Jorge Mario Bergoglio was in short pants. This is not all about him. He is not the ramrod. He's the pathetic consequence, the end result. So we're really not that interested in calling for his resignation, because at this point, if we don't use this moment to wake people up, at this point, we'll just get another modernist in there who will continue the same programs. We need to be praying to God that God will send his church, a holy pope who will once again care about preserving the doctrine and saving souls, who will rise up through the ranks of a reformed church, a church reformed according to her own traditions. This is the only way out of this nightmare. And we need to start working towards that now, even if it seems like it's up against impossible odds. We need to do it anyway, because we have an opportunity. The wheels are coming off this revolution, and we need to use this moment wisely. We must look at the fact that the church is occupied and has been occupied by the enemies of Christ, enemies of Catholic tradition, men who destroyed how Catholics believe a long, long time ago, and they did it for a reason. Lex orandi, lex credendi. Been saying it for half a century. They know it. We know it. If you destroy how someone prays, how someone worships, you will destroy how that person believes. And so they went after the traditional Latin Mass. They went after the liturgy. Remember? Just think for a moment of the difference. Even today, you look at a young traditionalist priest. He's virile, he's manly, his vestments, he's turned away from the people. He's at the altar of sacrifice, dealing with his God, worshiping his God on behalf of the people. There is something incredibly masculine about that, powerful about that. He is a knight of the altar. Now you turn him around, you dress him like a clown, you sit him in front of a Protestant table, one of Cranmer's table, where he sits up there and talks like this to the people, and he has such fun. He's doing that on purpose, can't you see? They wrecked the priesthood on purpose. That's why it's a gay profession now, because they destroyed the sacrifice. They emasculated the liturgy. Then they wrecked the sanctuaries to make sure that everybody got the message. Tear out the communion rails. Tip over the statues. Get rid of that high altar of sacrifice, because the Catholic Church, liturgically, is no longer about sacrifice. Now it's about the Lord's meal. It's been completely Protestantized. Even Benedict XVI said that the Roman Rite has been completely trivialized, friends. Wake up. This has been part of a process to destroy the church, to destroy the faith, and we're reaching the end of that process. A long time ago, they destroyed the churches. the priesthood, the liturgy. And then they emptied out the convents. And then they turned what's left of the priesthood finally into a gay profession. This has been systematic. It has been intentional. It has been engineered. And our lives as Catholics and the future of our children depend on what we do now, together, united behind these enemy lines in occupied territory. This is no longer about traditional Catholic versus non-traditional Catholic. That's not what it's about anymore. You do not need to be a traditional Catholic to see that the church has been taken over, has been occupied by her worst enemies. And it was a long time ago that this happened. Long before Francis. Whoever wishes at this point to remain Catholic will, I believe, become a traditionalist by default. Now that the scales have fallen, now that the blindfold has been removed. And so there's every reason in the world for all Catholics, for all of us now to unite against this common enemy who betrayed the fort and breached the walls of the church that we all love. We cannot leave the church. We cannot leave this castle which is under siege. Yes, they've breached the walls. Yes, they've taken positions of authority in our church. It doesn't matter. We need to get them out. We need to throw them out of the castle, throw them out of the fort. We need to agree to frustrate the hell out of these occupiers of our church by working together to restore the true Catholic Church, to restore the true Catholic liturgy that they stole from us, and to restore the doctrine and practice that's been under merciless attack all of our lives. We need to re-examine Vatican II. I hope and pray that these bishops that I just mentioned will call for a Vatican III now, to undo the damage and destruction of Vatican II. The event, I'm not talking about the 16 documents. They have their own problems, obviously, but it's bigger than those documents. It's the event. It's the aggiornamento of the day. It's throwing open the windows to the world, remember? Turning the priest around, changing Vatican II didn't call for all these things, but the spirit of Vatican II surely did. They knew, those who occupied the council, who took over the council, they knew that spirit was going to do its job, and it has, and we need to re-examine that now, today, that we can see so clearly where it all was leading all along. It's time to wake up to what really happened, and let's use this moment to sit down with each other now with 20/20 hindsight vision and consider the possibility, just the possibility at first, and then we'll move on to bigger and better discussions. But let's at first just consider the possibility that these modern churchmen and their modern liturgies and modern prayers and new orientation and church accompaniment have always been about one thing: destroying the church by destroying us, by destroying the faith of our children, by destroying what we Catholic men believed, what our fathers and what our grandfathers believed, by causing us to lose that faith, by destroying how we pray. That was their agenda. And this is what it's led to. Massive degeneracy in the hierarchy all the way to the chair of St. Peter itself. The church has never gone through anything like this. And while for the most part we are witnessing a battle, yes, that exists up there, a battle between good and evil, between Christ and Antichrist, between God and Satan, we also know that we are men. And we know that it is true that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph in the church today, what's left of our poor, suffering Mother Church, the only thing that's necessary for them to bury her is for good men to do nothing. So let us stop, finally, let us stop doing nothing. Let us stand up, let us pray the rosary, let us return to the traditional Latin Mass, and let us fight for what is ours, for the faith of our fathers, for our birthright, for our identity. Let us fight in defense of our Holy Mother, the Church. Please, God, give us the strength, the faith, and the hope and love to stand and fight. I'm Michael Matt for the Remnant Underground, and we'll see you next week.